Hello, Carol Taylor-Kearney here, Powell Arts, and I am with the marvelous Maureen Bowie and her artwork. And Maureen, can you introduce us to this fun and fab group?
Thank you, Carol. This is a little bit different from a lot of my work, although a lot of my work I've been introducing like a little bird, carved bird. But this in my head, we were renovating our house for the past year. And it was portray it. So it was kind of like, well, portray the renovation and all that goes through your mind in a sense. And I grew up with, like my father was a carpenter. So with construction and with remodeling and all of that. And my mother also as well, upholstery, So it all kind of comes together in a sense. I think that's what kind of came out of me. And it's bits and pieces of, this was in my house, doorknobs. I have lots of things in my studio, reclaimed wood I like to work with. So it kind of comes together in that sense.
Well, I see so much of some of the things that you've done and shown here before, everything from your trademark bird that you've carved and used keys for the wings, and as well as some of the pieces of wood with writing on them. Yeah, I mean, you just...
Well, even you integrate dots into a lot of things, and you even have the drilled holes that make dimensional dot patterns and things like that.
Yeah. So
and a spigot, you use spigots in your work too.
Yeah, so there's all this. And when we first saw these images, we got so excited because it's so much different than what everyone else had put in.
Okay.
And as a person who likes using used materials,
Yes.
because they have that history.
Yeah.
And it was like assemblage, which was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's a marvelous builder. The thing is that I love about all of Maureen's work as the person who puts the walls together, it's like they magically just hang. And
you really think about every detail in the story of presenting that piece and what you're trying to say, which is really nice because it makes it so that they are singular objects that tell a story, and we know exactly how to enter into the view of them because you've placed them exactly the way
you finish them off. But what I would like to actually ask you about is, can you tell us some of the individual stories for these? Because you started to tell us a story about this one. So maybe start here about...
with the key and my granddaughter.
Yes.
Well, she was really interested in this because I put it up on my wall. And she had to go over to it, get up on a stool, and I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're going to fall. And she had to get right in there and look, and she said, there's a key in there. So it was like, oh, I'm glad you noticed. And I just kind of said, well, that's the key within your heart.
Oh.
And what's funny about that is like you do have to explore to find where the key is, even in your own creativity.
Yeah,
but she found it immediately.
Get there and get right up to it. So,
it called to her.
Yeah.
And anybody who loves to watch some of the do-it-yourself home remodeling will notice the shiplap,
quality.
Yeah, that's actually, this is old lath, and it came out of my niece's house.
I love the way that you're using pieces that existed in the homes of you and your family in them, because it's going to have a nice, unique history in it. Mm-hmm. That I think was good. I love.
It adds to the domesticity too.
Okay. Well, and also I think it's funny that your granddaughter picked the smallest object to notice.
To zero in on.
Yeah. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little more about this one.
This was just reclaimed pieces of wood, and I was like putting them together because I was already in the whole realm of making, creating. And it was a doorknob. I thought that would be interesting to put the doorknob on there, which came out of my house all through last year's renovation. Mm-hmm. And it was beat up, so
it's beat up, but it also has a beautiful
patina.
But the idea was, and I put this in part of my statement, that the series I kind of called House, and I said something about like a house is more than just a roof over your head.
Yeah.
It's all these little details. I mean, you could look at that knob and think of memories or.
Yeah, it has a lived-in quality. They almost take on the energy of like the family that grew up there, and that.
Yes, it was kind of about that. And I mean, I could talk all day with my house because when we bought it, they wanted to buy it back from us years ago. And there was a few stories with that, and it kept coming back around and around. Even not so long ago, my daughter wound up working with a technician who was the granddaughter of the people we bought the house from. So it was like, it was like the house that built me or something. We kept saying and I said, and they wanted to come back. The grandmother wanted to come back and just see the house for one more time. And I said, she wouldn't understand it anymore. It's not the same. It's our house. It's, we've changed so many things. She wouldn't know she was in her old house. So,
it takes on a new quality, of the people who are in it. And that's what you get out of each of these, that there's a new quality of whoever is standing there looking at it. I also like how you're repeating, like here's circle, and then there's like little circles.
And actually I didn't even do this, if you could see, it's old.
But you selected it.
Yeah, and actually it is all like.
Well, and it also ties into the dotting on the other pieces and even on the piece of metal that the doorknob's in.
Yeah, and I was going to point this circle out too.
Correct, and there's a little one hiding.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Call the Plumber because I would like to hear how you came up with this.
Well, I like to play with things and create, and I had the faucet, and this was one I was like not making artwork, but I thought, how could you make water come out of that faucet? So, I'm just sitting, playing, and I pushed all the wire and the hoses and stuff like that in there. And I was like, this is pretty cool. And I mean, it only had the hole in the back, so I took it. It was hanging, like in my bar, we have a lot of art on the wall, and I just put it on one of the screws thinking, that looks pretty cool. There's water coming out of the wall.
Right.
It was just hanging there, and I knew that I wanted to use it or incorporate it into a piece of art at some point in time, not knowing what the piece of art would be or look like. So it all came into play with all of this other hardware to do that. And then, of course, to add the resin and make it look like water.
Yeah.
So I love it.
And again, my granddaughter the other day touched the water. I said, you thought that was wet, didn't you? She said, no.
Did you want to talk about renovation a little bit?
Renovation kind of comes together in all the assemblage like that. I think the handle puts it into not just reclaimed wood, but a piece of furniture. It kind of wraps it all together. The bird has been a signature in a lot of my work, and I thought that would be cool with a bird on it.
I love the little nut that's hanging down.
Yeah, which would go into maybe building a house, a boat, another bolt. So it's kind of renovation.
Well, and I think that there's in a lot of your work this idea of like not change exactly, but transformation and processing through these thoughts and emotions in a careful way, which I think ties in really well with the house and renovation theme, because people say one of the people love renovating everything, and yet when you're actually renovating it,
you're hating your life.
Yeah, it's a nightmare, which I think is a parable for any change brings out elements of your own history that like come into play. So in a lot of ways, this is really fertile ground for an exploration in art, because a lot of art is about this experience of emotion and transition and changing and observing that story. So while these are objects that have been assemblaged like into these beautiful pieces, they're also telling a story about your past and into your present, which I think is really nice.
Well said, because it was not an easy renovation.
I'm about to renovate my house tonight. Oh my God.
The floors came up right through to the basement, you could say, just to re-level.
So, you know what? Emotionally, the floors probably came up. You could see right into the basement. God, I hope that's not a thing.
No. And the other part of this is so wonderful is just as your granddaughter is, I want to go up and I want to, touch the different parts.
Gently, with respect.
Work in shorts.
Right.
There's a thoughtfulness and a playfulness to it.
To
Yeah.
all of it. And just as when I watch Antiques Roadshow, I love hearing about the hit. They bring in this thing that's been over grandma's piano for how many years, and they don't know where it came from. And all of a sudden, they're getting this story. You take a look at each one of these.
It's like they put the heart into the history of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Each one of these is a story, and together they make a nice book.
Right.
So,
And each separately gives me a place to come in and write my own story.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing that, Maureen.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
so,
Thank you, Caroline. So we'll say that together one more time.
so.
Please come see Maureen's wonderful work, maybe even Maureen, at Powell Arts for Portray It from.
January 19th through March 12th.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.